everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I'm just sitting here drinking my morning coffee. Looking sexy as hell while I do it. And I just thought I would sit down and do a video for you guys and gals. And so today let's talk a little bit about strength standards, because whenever I put up strength standards, I always use the squat, bench, and deadlift. And I get people who are like, you're just using those because you have a background in powerlifting. I'm like, no, I'm using them because most strength and conditioning coaches use them. When people bring up these complaints, I think they forget. They make all these counter arguments that these big three are just big. They're arbitrary exercises with arbitrary ranges of motion, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the problem with that argument. Here's why we use them for strength standards. For a standard, you need a comparison, right? Why do we have a standard? What's a benchmark? It's done for comparative purposes. We have a standard, and we can put different tiers to standard, different criteria, and it is a point of comparison. See where we're about to go with this? We have 3 exercises that all happen to be really big exercises that use a lot of muscle, kind of important for measuring strength. And even though the ranges of motion themselves are arbitrary, a squat has to be below parallel bench press, but a bench press isn't, it touches the chest. They all use standardized equipment. In other words, a standard bar with standard plates is exactly a certain number of inches or centimeters from the floor. The barbell back squat, if we set a standard of has to go below parallel, the hip has to drop below the knee. On a bench press, the bar has to touch the chest. We have basic rules in place to make sure it's more or less the same exercise that people are comparing. We think that's kind of important for a standard, a benchmark. Like if I'm giving goals to reach towards, kind of important to do that. The same thing, if we were to create a speed standard, a running standard, and we picked 40 meters, people would say, well, that's a really arbitrary distance. Yes, it is, but it's the same distance for everybody, okay? Some people argue, well, a certain person with a different leg length might have a small, slight difference from the starting point or something, or for their last step in the run. Okay, yeah, sure, absolutely. But it's still a standardized distance, more or less. Well, why are you only counting it if they run it on concrete or a certain type of turf? Why can't we have it on grass? Why can't we have it on gravel? Why can't we have it? Why can't I use my time on a slip and slide? Well, because it's not standardized for comparisons. These are different turfs and media that may not be uniform, and they may not be comparable from person to person. Whereas if we use the other type of surface, guess what? We now have a valid comparison from person to person. Okay? They're all doing the same test for the standard. All right, so we come to the squat, bench, and deadlift. Well, that's what we have. And because they are the 3 lifts that are tested in the largest strength sport in the world, with the most people who do it, these are extremely common, popular exercises that are done around the world. In pretty much every gym in the world, you will see people doing these 3 big movements. Guess what? We have a lot of data to compare different people. We have a lot of data to compare different people. So if we're going to set strength standards, why wouldn't we use those? That's why one reason I tell people, if you're going to want to be strong, keeping in mind strong means you want to be strong relative to other people, maybe in a measurable way. The lifts that we would usually just focus on the strength on, you could throw some others in, would tend to be those 3. And then everything else, we would just be geared towards our other goals, physique development, muscular development, all this stuff. Why? Because then we develop the little bit of skill necessary to test our displays of strength on the 3 that are usually used to compare people. And it's very straightforward. It's very simple. But people want to be contrarians for no reason. They want to be contrarians just because. Is it because they're weak? And I think half the time, and people don't like it when I say that, could it be because they want to be compared on non-standardized lifts because they don't want other people to know that they don't stack up that well? That's the number one excuse. I mean, it really is true. But, what's the point of having a standard and a comparison then? And I would say, well, maybe just get better, get stronger, get some more muscle in the right places. That will resolve your issue. Okay? We don't need these non-standardized lifts or lifts that no one cares about. Okay, so you have that. Number two, I feel like they're just being contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. It's almost a marketing point. Like I know coaches out there who are like, I don't do the big three ever. Not one of my clients does any of the squat, bench, and deadlift, and we get good results. People understand that's a marketing ploy. It's not because they think it's better. And I'm saying that as someone who says, yeah, you don't need a squat, bench, or deadlift to get jacked. Of course you don't. Are they useful tools? Sure. Are they essential? Will it necessarily limit your results to avoid them? No. But why are you avoiding them? Do you have an actual valid reason? Because the reason's not very well displayed in the research or the literature. And how many of the strongest athletes on the face of the earth use them? How many of the best bodybuilders in recorded history used them? Tons. I'll go so far as to say that more than half. Okay? So again, people are just being contrarian, or they don't want to be measured on these lifts. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, because they're weak or they're trying to be a contrarian in some way. All right, if we are going to set standards, or if we're going to collect data or even test ourselves for comparative purposes, or set a benchmark, because I set those benchmarks as, hey, this is goals to strive towards, right? As kind of an ideal in this scenario for this demographic. Well, if I don't have a valid comparison on lifts that are standardized, that we kind of know the rules of what's expected on, how do we even set a standard to reach towards? Okay? Otherwise, it's just get really good at running. And then you choose to do 47 meters on a slip and slide, right? You can't compare that to other people. You don't really know where you stand, nor do you have data for comparative purposes to continue to improve, right? To improve upon as a metric. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.